All right, we are blinking. Hi, Onize.
Hey Eddie.
Welcome to the Spotlight mic.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, man. I started this year saying that the conversations are going to be different. I'm going to have a lot of my friends, young people, share conversations with me, change narratives, try and see what is happening around the world and where our voices in all of this. Where do we come in? What is our role or what are our roles in it? And I'm so happy that you invited me over to have this conversation
for
with
sure.
you.
No,
Thank you.
I'm glad we could make it work.
Yeah. Well, hope I sent you the questions. Hope it's
Yeah.
not too.
No, these are good. I think they're, like I was saying earlier, I think they're very focused on not just what's playing out, but how it's affecting people. And that's the heart of it at the end of the day. So, yeah.
That's awesome. By the way, I love this thing. I was smelling it so much. I was like, something smelling so nice.
Oh, you actually picked it up?
Yeah.
The scent.
Yeah, I
that's good to
picked
know.
it. Yeah.
I wasn't sure if it worked. Temu for the win.
Ooh,
But
okay.
anyway.
Okay, but I love it. I love it. It smells so nice. If you don't know what it is, I'm sorry, but here we are having a very, very good conversation. Two very good friends, and we're just going to get right to it. Onize is a journalist, and she's been investigating. Are you the investigative one or the
Just a journalist.
the journalist? But she follows stories, and
Yeah.
I mean, you follow stories. You try to keep track of what is going on. I won't call myself a journalist. I'm more of a storyteller. I'm a talkative. But here we are, sitting on the table, journalist to talkative. But let's start from around the world. There's a lot happening. Donald Trump is on almost every spotlight, and America trying to take ownership of Greenland. You saw what happened in Davos, the whole chess game. And then in Nigeria, some time ago, the fact 2026 has started so hot. In Nigeria, we had the River State politics taking center stage, and now we have the security crisis again, which is dominating the headlines. But here we are, and on Friday I was sitting down, I was writing and putting it on LinkedIn, and I saw a survivor story, someone who survived the kidnapping in Kaduna, and she said blood was everywhere. That's very traumatizing for anybody, and you often see military reporting success stories and all that. So I'm just going to put the first question out there for you. You're a journalist, so how do you bridge the gap between these raw human horror stories and the diplomatic successes reported to the US, especially because US is our major partner in terms of security now, working in group meetings and all that. So how do you bridge that gap, because it looks like for a lot of people it's not what it is. Yeah, it's not adding up.
Yeah, so it's, at least from the few years doing this, the whole thing is, so first of all, there's the aspect of going beyond the headlines to the people who are actually impacted by whatever you're covering. You talked about the Kaduna story, and it's the same thing. I remember when last year, when the Benue Yelwata killings happened, that was a huge one. I think more than 200 people died. Same thing, like people tell you could smell death in the town. It's the same story, you hear constantly. And on one hand you have that, and then you have, like you were saying, since the whole Trump interference in the Nigerian insecurity space, where you have more statements from the military and other security forces, this operation was successful, we caught X number of bandits, X number of insurgents and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, it's the people, and that's where the problem is, that's where the solution is, for the most part, from whatever people can analyze. On one hand you can have that, but if the lives of the people are not changed, then nothing is going to turn out any differently. If you're talking about even groups like, this might be veering off a bit, but talking about even Lakurawa, that was the main group that was apparently at the center of the US airstrike. And if you trace many of these groups, they don't start or operate in a vacuum. There's issues on the ground that make people sympathetic to them. There are issues on the ground that they capitalize on. So as much as if you're taking in any security crisis, even if you look at other countries with Al-Shabaab, Somalia, it's the same thing. If your answer is solely military, you are not going to eradicate or clear whatever problem you're dealing with. It has to be a mix of both the human needs, the ground needs that are fueling and encouraging that group, in addition to whatever military interventions you're doing.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Like the people need to feel what is happening. I recently saw a video of Hilda Dukubo on Instagram, which she posted some days ago. This was just a few days ago, and she was talking about how we are not ready to combat insecurity in Nigeria. That if, for instance, Namdi Kanu could have been traced all the way to Kenya and arrested, and she cited a lot of instances of how intentional the government can be in when they want to do things, and why is insecurity, these issues that either have to do with human life now become very complex issues. But we're not soldiers, we are not on the front line. All we know is that we hear stories, we see what is happening. We don't really know what is happening. We've never been in a situation room to know who or what they are trying to protect that could cause a bigger damage. I'm not speaking for the military, but that's the story today. Like you said, the people is what really matters. It's the people who feel the impact of the whole thing. But you mentioned something about being sympathetic with them. How do you now reconcile that with what the chief of the minister of defense said? I still call him chief of army staff, the former chief of defense staff, minister of defense, who was talking about calling out sympathizers, saying that you if you sympathize with these people, you have to be careful, because a friend of a thief is a thief. That was his word. That was his statement. Yeah. So.
Yeah, that's why at the end I say is a double pronged situation, right? Like if you go into many of, even there was a reporting trip I took a couple years back to parts of Kaduna State, and many of these areas have no security presence. Like there's literally no security.
That's sad.
You are a country and you have communities that solely rely on their vigilantes, like the youth of that community, to protect them. And so again, I'll use Lakurawa, since that's one of, we've been talking about Boko Haram and others, but this is at least more in the news now. From my understanding, when I was looking back into how the group started, right, you have a situation where the community, this was I think in Monj, Sokoto State, because that was northwest area, was where they really kicked off. There were already security issues happening there with clashes with herders coming in, taking cattle, just harassing the community. Again, a security vacuum existed, right? And so what happened was you had these guys who were there and, in a sense, offered security to the local chiefs. And the local chiefs took it because they had no alternative at the time. And so the local chiefs took it. But then gradually, as what usually happens, these groups would become more radicalized, right? So by 2017, they had sort of structured. You now had them collecting tax from people with the jizya, like enforcing Islamic law. And then by 2018 was when they really started coordinated attacks. So I'm saying, I know there are different sides where you say, when it's obvious, like people who are hiding Boko Haram members. But again, when you get into some of these communities, you find out that it's more complex. Some of them will rather strike a deal with these guys, like, every month we pay you X amount for our protection, because there's no alternative. So that's why at the end it does not work in a vacuum. You have to have a multi-pronged approach to it at the end of the day, because you can't say they should not. The next option they have is their death. Many of them can't farm. The only way some of them can farm, and these are predominantly farming communities, the only way they can farm, eat, and make money is if they settle these guys. But then you tell them not to. What is the alternative? There's nothing. So what would they do? It's complex at the end of the day.
It's really complex. It's really, really deep. I honestly, man, I don't know. It's just something to think about and just reflect on. And for the government to carry out, I think there need to be more intentionality from our leaders, because, to be honest, the soldiers are doing their work. The villagers have no choice. They're in a fix. Those communities, they have to do what they are forced to do. And like you say, na condition they make crayfish bend. So these are the realities that we're facing, and it's even deeper than what we're even seeing now. There are so many other stories and aspects of these things that we don't even know. But we really hope that there's a lot of intentionality from the Nigerian politicians or those in power, so that this insecurity thing can be history for us. Because I look at the news, I read the news. It's like, it's so loud. It's so loud. That's the word I can use now. It's so loud. But we hope that things get better. But let's move over to the global scene. Wow, like Donald Trump has been Starboy of the Year. And already it's January. If there was a magazine or something to say this is the man of the month for 2026, the loudest person in the month is Donald Trump. I thought Wiki will win the award, but Donald Trump is winning the award. And what is shocking the whole world now is that the United States has officially exited WHO. It's big because Trump is talking about ownership of Greenland on one side and then pulling out a lot of things, a lot of tariffs. You can see the Canadian stuff happening, like he's already threatening Canada to drop, to put a lot of 100% or over 100% tariff on Canada if they deal with China. Canada is already offended by the way America is treating them. So there's a lot of power play going on the international stage. But then the biggest one of it is that the United States has, they've pulled out from WHO. This is such a, I don't know how to put it. It's just, I don't know, it's shocking to the world. But first of all, let me just ask you, what's your take? When you got the news, what did you think? Did my time hospital come to your mind? But there are a lot of vaccines that are going to be now heavily paid for.
Yeah, it goes by, all of this again didn't just start. If you look back to when a lot of global funding was pulled, it was the same initial reaction. And I know then the debate was about more investigations into how US funds are being used around the world, so there was a whole argument of, okay, as much as it's helping, there's also evidence that it's being misused. People start bringing out stories of, supposed aid where at the end of the day it's funding an office and funding cars, and then a very minuscule amount is actually going to help. So I think for me the deeper thing is countries like, and I remember when I reported on a story about that, just again coming a bit lower on the level of analysis, like the whole idea that countries like Nigeria need to realize that the global order and how things operate is shifting. I'm talking about the US, but when we look everywhere else,
it's
Europe,
everywhere.
Let's step back, right? Like European countries are more worried about this whole Islamist issue we're talking about. They are locking their doors. It's everywhere. And so it's that whole idea. It's the same conversation we have casually here. People tell you, if Nigeria is working, I would not go anywhere. That sentiment is there in a lot of people's minds. So it's that idea that at the end of the day, we have what it takes. The optimist would say we have what it takes. If you're being a bit pessimistic, you're like, with the current crop of leadership we have, is there hope at all? But the whole idea is, for me, my main takeaway is if all of this pushes more countries to realize that help is not coming from outside, and at the end of the day, those who are benefiting from the help coming from outside, who always have that external ticket to go to the luxuries to enjoy, no longer have that, it raises the question, would it force them to at least do something? Or the masses who are even more hurt, would that force people to rise up and rebel, like we've seen happen in Bangladesh and other countries where they are frustrated with the elite?
There's a lot going on. Like you said, a lot of countries are turning inward. They're closing their doors. They're trying to fix their, is it economic, is it security? We have Ukraine war going on. This is how many years now going on, and they're sitting down and trying to settle it, and I don't know what they will agree on at the end. You see Iran, there's a very huge protest going on there already. Right. America has sent troops there. So there's a lot going on that those global powers do not, in quote, the global powers, the EU, the even America itself, they don't have that luxury or that time or that resource to say, okay, we have these people's time at this point. If they are coming to Nigeria, they stand to gain something. If they are going to Kenya, wherever it is, everybody's now is like, what are you bringing to the table? We are not just doing freebies for now again. There's a lot of
renegotiation happening. And again, it's just that thing of, at the end of the day, to locally, you understand the dynamics that play in your own country. You understand like people who say this whole clash, if I think back to 2000, we were in Kaduna when there was the crisis, the Sharia crisis, like all these things are not new. There's so much historical context to a lot of the issues that are playing now. They didn't just start randomly one day. So if you have all of this context and you can have your own country's interest in mind, there's a lot more you can do to resolve it. There are people already working on a small scale in different communities. If there is genuine interest and partnership with some of these guys, a lot can be done to resolve. But again, the interest in resolving is another thing. The political will, exactly. Yeah.
Political will, like you said. I really hope. I want to wake up to a time, and very soon, like soonest that the time that in the news that these people realize that our nations are burning and we need to sit down and see how we can figure this out. And if they don't, I expect more from we young people. We need to start changing the narratives and trying to change the order. Let's call it world order. Let's call it Nigerian order. We need to start rising up and changing the order and telling the older generation, you guys have done enough. I think you're spoiling what you've already started. So just chill. Let's continue. Fix what you've messed up and then. But still in Nigeria, 2027 elections, the drums are beating loud and 2026 already started in Rivers State. The FCT minister was in Rivers State. There was a lot of election drama going on there, and the Senate President, Senator Godswill Akpabio, is saying that the Electoral Act amendment will be wrapped up as soon as possible to be ready. And then Atiku is calling also for a true sort of calling for his supporters not to be hostile with Peter Obi, who is also a party member with him in ADC, and both want to run for presidency. So I don't know. Is the 2026 SM election also a drama distracting us from the 2026 reality that we are facing today in Nigeria? Because it's just January.
Exactly. I mean, this didn't just start now. It started from last year when people were like, look, it's a bit too early. And it just represents what we're talking about, where at the end of the day, the people who should have that will to do something are still very focused on their selfish interest and retaining power and are not interested at all in what's playing out on the ground. And for me, that's what I'm looking forward to. I remember the last national election when all the young people, I mean, the rush and the PVC hashtags, we all went and got our voters cards like queued up. It was, it was really encouraging, all the trends we were seeing. And I'm looking forward to seeing whether that would still play out in 2027, because it almost looks like a lot of, from NSARS to the one that happened in August last year,
and
the protest, bad governance, you could already see the decline in hope. I guess that's the best way to put it, where people are like, people are starting to give up that, whether or not things can actually change. And so it'll be interesting to see whether, because right now, like you said, all the focus has shifted from what's happening and people are frustrated. I mean, we always use Apple Bridge as an example, where as things started to get harder, you see more people walking. As opposed to, and they will tell you, I was talking to a tailor a few months back, and he's like, I have to cut this extra part of my trip. So I have to walk, so that because of how hard things are now, so I can use that cash, for another part of the trip. So things are a lot more complicated than they were. People are definitely struggling. So at the end of the day, like you said, if those in charge are not doing what they should do, it now falls on the people. Well, are the people motivated and hopeful enough that whatever action they take, one, they would be heard, and two, would they pay the ultimate price? We've seen other countries. Iran has been, we followed the story. Lives are lost, and people are still trooping out because it's like, some people would argue that the situation there is more dire, that they're willing to die than continue with the norm.
Wow.
So sometimes there's a bit of extremism to the situation on the ground that might get people willing to lose their lives. Here, I don't necessarily know if people are willing to go out and lose their lives, but it's just not encouraging that every time you try, it's being squashed. Whatever efforts to have roundtable discussions are manipulated. So it's discouraging. But ultimately, I'm hoping that people, especially that are young adults, will still be encouraged to come out and.
But let me play a little bit of the devil's advocate here. Do you think these things are orchestrated to intentionally discourage people to come out to the polls, or these realities are orchestrated or fixed sort of, or is a system sort of so that they don't have that turnout and have the Nigerian? I know it's a very dicey question, but a lot of people, I've had conversations with people and they're like, that's what is happening, because there's a lot of power politics, politics, election conversations going on, but we don't have, like you said, that response compared to the last election. It's not there. People are more focused on survival than elections this time around.
It's a well-known political tactic. I mean, Uganda just finished their national elections where the 81-year-old came back. I was talking to a friend, she's in Kampala now, we're in school together, and I checked in with her on Monday, so days before the vote, and she was like, this is ridiculous. Like, you could sense the frustration. She's in her early 30s. She's like, how can this guy still be in power? But again, she was going out to vote for the first time because it was the first time she was around for the election. But she's like, I know nothing is going to change. But the point why I'm bringing this up is, if you look over a year, at least, it goes much further, but at least a year before the vote, they had started arresting the major political opponents. Like, so the whole idea of squashing opportunities for any counter voice or for hope is all part of it. So at the end of the day, people know there's that feeling of there is no alternative, and people just go with it. So it's a normal thing to almost sort of make people feel strangled, like there's no option.
Yeah.
You know, like, or to the point of, I don't even care about politics, I just care about my daily bread.
Yes.
But you know that it is all connected. But when people have been, in a sense, politically suppressed so much that it almost feels like they tell you there's no point. That's why I was very encouraged when, you know, my friend I'm talking about told me, I'm still going out to vote. And I know she's like, these things don't last forever. Someday.
Yeah.
And that's the hope element. Like, someday things will change. But it is definitely a move to weaken any potential opposition, you know, make things a little bit tighter, a little bit harder, but in a controlled way, you know, so that
it's very systematic.
Yeah,
it's very, very systematic, and I thank you so much for putting it that way, because it's something that I've sat down and reflected on. People have also pointed it out that it's a very systematic thing, and I really wish they were that intentional when it comes to reforms that is actually for the greater good. But before we go, I mean, you thank you so much for sitting behind the spotlight today. You mean behind the mic, and it is you're a journalist, and in an era where strongmen narratives, as strongmen in quotes, are chasing with systematic stability. So how do you, in your own experience, how do you keep your voice from becoming just another footnote in the story of this power play and stuff?
Yeah, I think at the end, for me anyway, it's almost like, what's your motivation for doing what you're doing? At the end of the day, like I started, you know, when we started the conversation, I said for me it's about the people. So most times, yes, there's the whole idea of chasing whatever is happening, but at the heart of it for me, it's the people. If there's a major attack somewhere, my first thought is, how are the people affected? How are they managing? What's keeping them going? You know, so I mean, even if the voices get blurred, for me, just the opportunity to be able to let people share their stories, and potentially even encourage. That's like, if you notice, so I kept mentioning the concept of hope, because without hope, many of the situations people are surviving in Nigeria right now, they would not survive it. That's the truth. And so just being able to, first of all, give people the opportunity to share their stories, and then in those stories, resilience is a common thread. So even if at least one other person sees that and is able to get some sort of hope and passed on strength from it, then my work is done. You know, it doesn't have to be every time the number one. That would be sweet, but I don't really care about that as much as, you know, like letting their voices and their stories be told in a situation where it's just like background noise, and letting that be a source of encouragement for others who might need that at the time.
That's very beautiful and touching. That's very, very powerful. But before we round off, finally, what's the message you would leave to every young Nigerian today? Because I started the Spotlight mic so that I could also play my own part in changing narratives and building conversations, and at large form a community of like-minded young people who are attentive, are aware of what is going on, have conversations, and then translate these conversations into positive action. So what's your final take for every young person who will be watching this video, every parent, whatever generation who has an opportunity to listen to this podcast or to watch us this evening? What's the message you have for them, especially in this very challenging 2026 that we've already started in?
Yeah, I mean, I'll say again, just like what you're doing, you know, just things might seem messed up, and again, like there is no hope, but there's always at least one more person who has a positive vision like you do. And even if there is no other person and you're the only person, just start. Whatever you're doing, like my point is, don't let the situation on the ground playing out get you discouraged, that whatever great ideas you have, you lose track of them. You always have something to offer, because, and again, like one person can look at what's happening now and say there's no point. Another person can look at the same situation and see an opportunity to have an impact, right? Like, so if you can look at it, and even in your small community, is it the lady helping you clean, the security man, the person who, just by interacting with them, you find out, like a random conversation, I found out a lady we know, her family in Kaduna has been crazily impacted by what's happening. Like, so it's not as far off as we think it is from us. It's really not. So whatever it is, whether it's, personal, whatever, or, more of an impactful thing you're thinking about, like, just go for it. Don't let whatever the political elite or the economic situation is discourage you. Find somewhere to start and just do something.
Thank you so much, Onize. Yeah. Thank you so much for your time and for inviting me to your space. Usually we do this. Usually I always have this in the studio, but thank you so much for inviting me to your home. Very beautiful home. I don't know. Okay, in case this gets missing, probably
I know it's you. Sounds good.
And I love the glass too. The whole the mount. Which mountain is it?
It's in the Swiss Alps.
Swiss. Yeah, I mean it's lovely. It's lovely. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, guys. Thank you. You've heard the conversation. I hope you loved it. I hope you enjoyed it. So these are the conversations I'll be having. If you're listening or you're watching right now, click on the notification bell for more episodes to come, and subscribe, comment, like. And I'm not doing it for the money. If you think it's for the money or anything, I just want to know that there's a community who is involved, which is a community that is active, and we're moving forward to change the narratives and grow, and to see how we can have a Nigeria that is safe and sound for our children in cribs and unborn. Thank you so much. God bless you. Till the next episode. Onize, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so
Thanks
much
for the conversation.
Thank you.